afternoon and welcome. This very first interview that we have with the person you're seeing on the screen with me, and that is, of course, Alderman JP Smith, the Mayoral Committee member for Safety and Security in the City of Cape Town. Good day and welcome.
Welcome.
It is so nice to have you with us. Thank you very much for your time.
It's a pleasure, Annette. And all of us getting used to doing many more of these kind of interviews using live streaming devices and otherwise. You can see how the media is constantly transforming.
Definitely. For the better, I think.
I think more perspectives. I think there's good and bad with it. With more commentators and more content creators, you get more perspectives and more detailed insight into people's local areas. Unfortunately, you also get less quality control. And so, unfortunately, with some of the content creators, there is substantial bias and often significant factual inaccuracy. So the consumer needs to start taking more care.
I agree. If we look at all the fake news that goes around, and it's so much easier with today's with social media for this news to actually get out and be just blasted all over.
Well, in fact, in times of crisis and disaster, whether it was the COVID disaster, whether it was the drought crisis in Cape Town, or the taxi strike most recently, fake news and inaccurate reporting and reporting of incidents that don't exist and creating panic and anxiety around stuff that's not accurate is a big problem. Last week, there was a blockade or a traffic jam of taxis extending out of the station deck onto Christian Barnard Road. And members of the public immediately assumed it was a strike and started circulating videos. And those videos were very exaggerated and a lot of people started to panic. And in fact, all it was a traffic jam on the station deck caused by the taxi industry itself, resisting people who are illegally trying to access the rank and trying to get the authorities to come and impound it. So the taxis themselves ask for impoundment.
You see, that's why it's so important to make sure you get it from a good source and a source that you can trust. Before we go ahead, I would like to thank our sponsor, that is our family office, for making today's interviews possible. Our family office, from premium backing solution to sophisticated asset funding planning, that is our family office. We are going to jump right in, Mr. Smith. When it comes to safety and security, most of us are living in constant fear. And I find that most of our readers and viewers, well, they don't have a lot of faith and trust in the people who are supposed to do just that, keep us safe. What is being done to change this perspective?
I think it's a legitimate impression that you have. If you look at the surveys this last year around the different institutes and organisms and branches and departments within government, the police are now the least trusted part of the state. And that is tragic. That is incredibly tragic, because it should be the one group of people you completely and totally trust and rely on. And with that, of course, comes the challenge that the public see all the different parts of the police as the same. They often don't make a distinction between municipal law enforcement or metro police and SAPS. What we are trying to do is to increasingly make sure that Metro Police, law enforcement and traffic services are ethical and can be trusted. And we acknowledge that SAPS is not in a good place. They are severely under-resourced with less than half of the resources they should have. Critical things like detectives that are desperately needed in order to drive the convictions are very short start, maybe 8,600 detectives across South Africa. And as a consequence, you have a very, very low conviction rate with a criminal justice system that's now struggling to put criminals behind bars. So the city has taken the approach of not waiting for national government to fix this, not waiting for them to correct the various parts of the criminal justice system, which the national government controls, but to expand our functions continuously. So we've put more boots on the ground. We've invested more money in training, in command and control and accountability. We have computer-aided dispatching, which ensures that, apologies for the ringing phone.
No.
We have computer-aided dispatching, which ensures that we are able to see what our staff are doing and hold them accountable, and that we can audit their behavior, and continuously investing in more discipline and professional conduct and training around professional conduct. We rolled out dash cams and body cams, which ensures that staff are held accountable, that we can see what they're doing, that we professionalize their behavior. Yes. We've invested in technology like CCTV, drones, the Eye in the Sky, which is starting in February, our EPIC, our Emergency Police Incident Command System, that computer-aided dispatching system, without which you cannot run a modern police force. We've moved towards increasingly sophisticated information management and investigations to make sure that we can see or that we can follow up on our cases. And we've partnered increasingly with partners such as Neighborhood Watches, around 50,000 of them in Cape Town now, private security companies, the law enforcement reservists that we have called the Auxiliary Service, the rent-a-cops, the paid police officers that community-sponsored, city improvement districts and otherwise. And because of that information-driven approach, I can now, for instance, tell you that of the 700 firearm and ammunition arrests we've made in the last 22 months, we've had 6 convictions, and that the criminal justice system is in a seriously bad state. And because we know that, and because we are more intelligence-driven, we can now engage the NPA and the DOJ about correcting those deficiencies and problems in the criminal justice system.
I think for anyone that will just follow the pages of City of Cape Town will actually see exactly what you've been telling us now. We've seen a lot, like you say, more boots on the ground, and a lot is being done. So yes, I thank you very much for that. We need to sort of take back control again, and it's good that we can rely on our authorities. Before we go on, I just want to take a short ad break, and I would like us to talk a little bit about the recent taxi strike. A lot of violence went along with it as usual, and we saw your officers taking a very firm stand in negotiations. It took a bit longer than we thought the strike would be. So when we come back after this ad break, I would like us to just touch on the recent taxi strike. We'll be back after this.
And for the bricks and mortar of your dream castle, we're your knights with the Home Loan Origination Shield. Armed with expertise and a vast bank network, your dream home awaits. Dreams, we believe they're blueprints, not fantasies. At our family office, it's not just about transactions. It's about connections. More than a bank, we're your financial confidant, ensuring you're always a step ahead. Embrace the revolution. Relive the age of genuine banking infused with heart. Dive into our family office.
Welcome back. I am Annette for Happening News. Today we have with us on screen Alderman JP Smith, the Mayoral Committee member for Safety and Security in the City of Cape Town. Today we are just touching about what is the city doing to help protect us and help us as citizens feel safe. And just before the ad break, I asked Mr. Smith about the recent taxi strike and the firm stand that we saw their office take in the negotiations. It took a bit longer than we expected the taxi strike to be. Was that something you anticipated?
Well, I think we tried to end it as soon as possible, and we understood the impact it was having on the public, but we also realized that we may be in for a protracted standoff. What the taxi industry asked of the city, and effectively asks of the whole of South Africa every day, that we turn a blind eye to their recklessness and the inconsiderate driving, and that be normalized, that just could not happen. So we couldn't make the concessions that they wanted us to make. It's not in the public interest. And if you make concessions this time, you will be making concessions every time and needlessly, which is the trap that South Africa is in with a national government that's unable or unwilling to act against crime and disorder. The fire in the High-Tech Johannesburg building is a case in point where national government has failed to fix the Fire Act. They're trying to do what they think is popular with their voters. They're not doing the right thing. And that means that a piece of legislation that's long been broken, that we know is broken, led to the inevitable horrific consequences that we saw there.
Sure.
And this is the issue in government, that you must, from time to time, be willing to do the right thing, hold the line, uphold law and order. Otherwise, you will be making more and more horrible concessions all the time, and they will start looking like what we saw in Johannesburg.
Yeah, that was very sad. You can't, obviously you can't speak for them, but what do you think the way forward will be from their side to avoid something like that from happening again?
Well, I mean, I understand from an interview that I saw with one of the MACO members, the MMCs in the Johannesburg City Council, that they have 600 hijacked buildings in their CBD alone. So that's insane. The whole of the city of Cape Town only has about 80 problem buildings. And in terms of, and those are sometimes quite minor, in terms of seriously problem buildings, we're probably talking about 14, 15 buildings, of which there are at the moment, what you can hijack buildings, you can refer to 2 hijacked buildings that we can say is fully hijacked, maybe a third one. And we've got a problem building unit, a problem building bylaw, and we're taking high court action against these buildings. So we have a strategy for dealing with them. But the situation in Johannesburg is the inevitable consequence of a very bad piece of national legislation called the PI Act, the Prevention of Illegal Eviction and Unlawful Occupation of Land Act. And that has made it impossible for public and private property owners to protect their land effectively. And the consequence now is that buildings can be hijacked like that. So yes, you can try and apply your city bylaws, and you can try and remedy the situation, and you can go there with a fire inspector and do an inspection, but to what effect? If the building is hijacked, there's no owner who is in charge. If you do not have a competent, capable owner who is in charge, a responsible owner, and you've got a group of people who are illegally occupying a building, there's no person to hold accountable. There's no money to fix it because there's no rent coming in. So if there's no rent coming in, there's no ability to sustain the building. So national government's thinking is fundamentally flawed and broken in this regard. And they have created those exact circumstances through the PI Act that we now see. And they're going to see it again, unfortunately, because that powder keg is loaded all over. You only have to look at the Carte Blanche documentary on this, the Carte Blanche episode, which unfortunately sets the stage for many more of these catastrophes and disasters that are likely to unfold.
Yeah. Now, strikes and violence seems to be the norm in South Africa. We would like to see less damage, less burnt buses, less property damages, less injuries and less deaths. Does your office have a strategy in handling these situations in future?
I believe yes. And I think it starts with saying no to the violence the first time. So when you capitulate to violence, when you agree to violence and thuggery, when it is deployed as a tool of intimidation to try and force your hand, to make improper compromises of the law, such as the taxi industry was asking us to make, then you incentivize the next deployment of violence and anarchy and vandalism. And the next one after that, and the one after that. And you'll carry on like that continuously until you find yourself in a completely impossible and untenable situation, a situation that South Africa is rapidly arriving at. And nothing will get better until you take a stand and you define the line that you're not willing to cross, and you're willing to back that up. And that's not a fun thing to do. Doing the right thing often is not fun. But we also didn't just stand by and watch violence be perpetrated. During that taxi crisis, we had 24-hour deployments. We were escorting buses and others. Our buses were able to run at 95% efficiency or functionality because of the policing escorts. We escorted food trucks. We effected 295 arrests and opened more than 405 criminal cases. We brought criminal and civil charges against the leadership of Santaco. So we had a plan for keeping people moving and trying to keep the city as functional as possible. That is made very difficult when a very large industry, which earns an enormous amount of money, a 90 billion rand industry that pays only 5 million rand tax, becomes hell-bent on making that impossible. And then you're no longer dealing with an industry, you're dealing with a criminal syndicate.
Yeah, sure. What is your message for the people of the Cape Town and the Western Cape in general?
So I think that both the provincial government and the city, they can see us standing by them and standing by the rule of law. We can't negotiate with criminals. And I think that both the city and the province are punching well above our weight on deploying safety and security measures to pick up the slack when national government is unable to fulfill its duty in crime prevention, its constitutional duty. Keep in mind that a local government is supposed to be dealing with traffic and bylaw enforcement. But in the city of Cape Town, around 2/3 of our effort now go into crime prevention, which is a national competency. And we're proud to do that. We will carry on pushing that while we fight for the devolution of policing powers and the ability to take control of SAPS so we can restore SAPS to proper functionality. We are doing with our resources and our powers what we can, and that includes, for instance, the LEAP project, where we rolled out 1,200 law enforcement officers in 12 nodes, the 12 highest crime rate areas in the city with the most violence, and where we have seen ourselves quarter on quarter bringing down each of those areas, either reducing them in violence or slightly or stabilizing them, while the rest of South Africa is tracking up. Every quarter, your murder rate, your attempted murder rate across the rest of South Africa is inching up quarter on quarter. In the Western Cape and specifically in Cape Town, we have seen those figures come down. We had a 5.5%, 5.6% reduction in murder this last term. It's not monumentally large, but it's sustained. So quarter on quarter, we are inching that down, or we're stabilizing it. And that, I think, is proof that if you bring these powers within the control of provincial and local government, or where we are simply running with those powers, we're doing what we can, we're pushing our powers to the limits. We're not waiting for national government to fix what they appear to be unable to fix. Then we can make a difference. And I think the Gauteng provincial government's deployment of their wardens is an acknowledgement of the same. The conversations within the South African Local Government Association echo the same sentiments. And whilst the Gauteng provincial government took a very different route and did not equip their people with legal powers, they're not municipal peace officers, the mere fact that they have rolled out a provincial intervention, notwithstanding SAPS, is acknowledgement of the fact that they see the same thing we are seeing, and that is that the management and the political management of SAPS is slowly but surely strangling this absolutely critical entity that we need for South Africa to prosper.
Sure. Thank you so much. JP Smith, Mayoral Committee member for Safety and Security in the City of Cape Town, talking to us. And thank you very much for that message. City of Cape Town working together to keep us safe and taking control back. We would like to talk to you again next month, and I have a viewer's question, and that goes up is about the traffic light hotspots. And I think not only those hotspots, the hotspot areas. So maybe we can look at a few of those spots next week or next month, and what people can do to protect themselves. Thank you very much for your time. You must have a great evening. Till next time.
Thank you, Annette. Keep well.
Thank you.